Nice. Who wants some money? Yeah, anybody need money? All right, well, in about all of 7 minutes, we put together a deal this afternoon to lend Farah about $150,000. Yes. Okay, as a second on one of her rentals. 4 of us put the money together. Myself, Goodwin, Anna. Is Anna here? Yep, there you go. And it was one other person. Who was it? Ricardo. There he is. So, yeah, 4 of us, about 5-10 minutes, put together a deal like that. So if you haven't come to Exchangers before, it happens every Wednesday, 12 to 2. Okay, as members, you get into that. If you're not a member, you need to become a member to get into it. But again, 12 to 2, we put deals together, we lend money, we borrow money, and literally lent $25,000 out, and then with another member over there, Mr. Gary, borrowed $70,000 an hour later. So it all takes place right here, okay, from 12 to 2 on Wednesdays. So if you have real estate you want to buy, trade, sell, get money, bring stuff. I think we might have traded a car. I'm not sure how that one's going yet. But all kinds of stuff, guys. 12 to 2 at Exchangers every single Wednesday, okay? And if you want to come early, if you have a drive, you can come to that meeting, hang out. You know, we usually hang out, talk, go get lunch, whatever. But the fire center's open basically at 12 o'clock on Wednesdays all the way until the end of this meeting, okay? So with that, have any sponsors in the room? Oh, come on. Any sponsors in the room? 2 of them? 3 of them? All right, let's give them a round of applause, please. 4 of them, I guess. I forgot I'm a sponsor now. So we have lots of sponsors, any escrow companies, solar companies, deal companies, podcasts, finance companies. Basically, if you're looking for any of their services, please check them out first. Give them a shot first. These people have been around the club for a long time. They're always members first. I don't let people just walk in and throw money at me. Many have tried. I told them no, okay? And surprisingly, some of them didn't come back. So I make sure that people are dedicated members first. Everybody on that board is, okay? So again, check them out. You can go to the website, click the sponsors button, or just type in iereic.org/sponsors, or just scan that QR code up there and check them out, please, okay? And if you haven't heard, you guys are gonna get the code again. I accidentally forgot to take that off again. I took it off the slide that I just put into Evan's presentation, but I forgot to take it off there. So there you go. You have about 3 seconds to get that code before I go disable it. So anyways, John Shop's coming out in June 22nd and 23rd. It's really, really special that he's coming, guys. You know, the fact that we have this fire center here and we have the attendance that we have is the major reason we're able to get these big guys that come out here, okay? Most of these guys haven't been out here in like 5 or 6 years. So it's special that they're being able to come out here. Andy's actually at their class right now that they're doing all the way in Florida. He's probably spending a lot more money going to that class than it is for you to come see him here, okay? So check that out. And with that, I guess Jim isn't feeling too well, so I'm going to bring Mr. Evan Brown up here. Evan is not only my stepdad, but he's also my business partner in a lot of things, a mentor, a friend, and give him a round of applause, please.
Hey everybody, how are you? How many were at a seller's house or owner's house this week at least? Right? Okay, good. How many in the last month? Okay, all right, good. Just want to know, who made some phone calls in the last week or 2? Who made offers? Who had offers rejected? Who had offers rejected, you almost makes you want to quit? Okay, yeah, Jim is not doing well. There's some chest bronchial thing that's not COVID, but something, and he's just not doing well. I spoke to him again this morning, but he was feeling better, but it's just kicking his butt. So just be careful about that. Wash your hands a lot right now. It's just crazy out there. Anyway, I wanted to go over the subject for some time, really how to dominate a neighborhood, how to work in a neighborhood, how to farm it, how to keep going, and really develop it over and over the longer you're there. You can call it farming. There's a lot of things you can call it. But one of the things about it is for many, it's just a natural progression, which means you don't have to work that hard sometimes, and it'll naturally progress. But I've known people that own 2 properties or property in one neighborhood for 40 years and never buy anything else in another neighborhood. And others, in a matter of years, will own a big percentage of the houses in the area. What's the difference? That's kind of what we're going to talk a little bit about. And also, if you don't own in the area, so this works for landlords, this worked for housing providers, so this could have been done last week that versus being done now in the wholesale flipping focus group. But the point is, it still works the same, and it's still done wherever you're at or any area you want to work in. So something that we're going to talk about. Can I do this? First of all, I am not an attorney. I had to tell someone that like 10 times a day. I was like, no, I was on my phone. I was on the phone and email with our attorney yesterday, giving you this info, why we need to meet at our attorney's office next week. And yeah, we put it together, a deal, 3 of us today, in a house where we're going to give someone 60 grand to take care of some problems, and we're going to get back 42,000 back in about 3 months. So that's what we're doing. But I'm not an agent, I'm not a broker, not a marriage counselor, financial advisor. Everything I say is stuff that we've done, or I've had experience with, or maybe someone's close to me told me enough to where I have an idea on it. Otherwise, or I'll tell you, I really don't know, but here's what I think. So understand that, always get good legal advice. And always, it's okay to always get someone to take another look at something. Remember that, okay? First of all, I do fix and flips. I've been an investor for 14, 15 years. I just realized that at the end of this year, it will be 10 years since I got rid of my JOB thing, so I'm really excited about that. Yeah, I just realized that, and Angela's got 1 year left, and then she'll have 10 years gone too. But we're really, we do wholesale deals, long-term rentals, mobile homes and parks and land, notes, etc., stuff like that. Anyone know this game? How many know that the point of this game is not to get all your friends and family mad at you? Right? No board flipping. How many? Okay. Anyone know what the original name of this game was? Who knows what the original name of this game when it was first thought of back in, early 1900s? Anyone? Landlord's game. Anyone know what year? Well, 1903, but we'll go with that. Hey, there's a lot of history to it. A lot of people bring some things up. It's debatable on certain things because there's been so many generations of it. But real quick, this is a blanket I'm going to give away for whoever can answer this question fastest. This is donated from Tim Clayton. Saw him yesterday. He goes, "Who wants this blanket?" And I said, "I do." So I'm going to be the only one knowing this answer so that I can say I gave everyone a fair shot. Just kidding. Oh, wrong way. Is it inside out? Is it this way? See, anybody can do this. It's not an IQ test. Okay. What city is a modern Monopoly game based on? New York. Raise your hand if you know the answer. Wrong. Come on.
San Francisco.
Think gambling.
Italy.
Las Vegas.
Atlantic City.
Oh my God.
It's based on 22 acres of Atlantic City, the modern Illumination is. Basically, the whole idea behind the landlord game was to understand how that you can reward individuals for getting ahead by at the same time not looking at the advantages of that versus concentrating the wealth in the hands of, say, a monopoly, a local monopoly. That was one idea behind it. It was an education game. At least that was the start of it. Later, it became the source of a lot of divorces and marriage counseling sessions and things like that. So just keep that in mind. But so we have Monopoly. If you get an idea as what those are, those streets with the same colors, that's a generic neighborhood of Atlantic City. Like I said, it's 22 acres of an area. And the idea is the more you control that area, the stronger you get, right? Anyone ever heard of the domino theory? Think back to school. Idea was, in a certain part of the world, one communism, et cetera, one country would fall, another one would fall, another one would fall, happen to few times. Well, think that, and then farming. Well, wrong kind of farming, but this type of farming, or this type, really. But the idea is they all have things in common, okay? And if you look at it, that what you're doing when you're playing Monopoly is you're really farming the neighborhood. You just already know that if you just keep going around and around, sooner or later, you're going to be on one side of it or the other, okay? And then just like, how many people here are real estate agents? Okay. So how many people do not know what farming is? Or farming a neighborhood. I don't mean this farming, I mean this farming. All right? How many you don't know? Okay. All right. Well, farming, I'll answer anyway. Farming is a term that you'll hear a lot of real estate agents and even investors say of taking an area that you've designated to start working and producing and putting some love and effort into a given area to try to get a predetermined result in a period of time. So you're going to start walking a certain neighborhood. Maybe that's a few hundred houses. Maybe it's a few thousand houses. It might be this street versus this street, up to this street. It might be a mile square. I think Bill Cook has been known to work like 2 miles one way and 3 miles another. It's where he's a investor. How many know who Bill Cook is? Okay, some of you. He's a very well-known investor who learned from Pete Fortunato and learned from John Schaub. And someone that he knocks doors a lot, and he's become an expert on buying about 10 to 20 houses a year. He likes to pay them off because it feels good, and he teaches a lot of us how to do this. Usually, though, to go see him, you got to go out of the state. So one of the things about it is that if you pick an area that you work and keep working that area, you will start getting to know people and starting to get a little better at the area, start making contacts, and you can develop the area to where it really will start producing for you. You ever heard the thing, you get what you sow? You reap what you sow, right? Or you plant wheat, you're going to get wheat later, right? Yeah. So again, it goes back to all sorts of things with this. You want to talk about positive affirmations. You want to start talking about good things all the time versus always the negative, always everything's going wrong. Guess what's going to start happening up in here? All right, so there's a mindset behind this too. So we're going to talk about how to do this in an area, whether you own property, whether you not, or you don't. So whether you own it now or not yet, doesn't matter. Okay, we're going to go over some of those. And I'm going to talk about several different neighborhoods that we have done over the last 15 years. Okay, and we're still doing today. All right? And then with that comes this question. If you are a landlord, it's self-managed or outside property management. Right? How many landlords in the room? How many self-manage? Okay. One of the reasons why we self-manage, because I don't know if I'm going to get this guy if I hire property management, or I'm going to get an award-winning property manager, and you won't know until after you hire him. You just don't know. You do not know. Our first property, Angela and I hired a local property manager, and there's some good ones out there. We got one that was mediocre. It turned out we were doing all the showings. We don't know what he did, but he eventually found us someone, or we found them, and he signed them and did it. After a year, we fired him, and then we got a long-term tenant, and it would stay doing that the rest of the time. It was the only time I ever had a property manager in the state of California, okay? Not knocking them, there's a good thing, but I just chose to do that. It's totally, I know some really good property managers. I have friends that just have someone that does it all. We manage our own. But that's one of the reasons. But the reason why is the best advantage is this. Come on, leads. We get more leads from our tenants and being on the ground in the neighborhood than it's just a huge lead source. And you're missing out if you're not in an area, working in an area constantly. Okay? And it can be done a number of ways. And this is what we're going to talk about. Back in around 2011, this is Old Town Victorville. How many people know of a town that has an Old Town section? Right? Many towns have an Old Town section. Or they might have another section called the Groves or the Woods or the Gaslamp District or by the mountain or whatever, right? There's certain things. Well, in this one, hopefully you're going to be able to see this, this showed up on my radar when my other son said, hey, Dad, I noticed this triplex for $65,000 here in California. And I saw that and went, hey, that might work out. And I don't know if you can see that. This is a button, right? Pointer? See this right here? That was a triplex. Paid $65,000 on the MLS, just some agent, I don't know who it was. And it was what we'd call a war zone. It was where I cut my teeth, literally bullet holes, and it was rough. Matter of fact, but this is where I started. We had a couple rentals down in San Bernardino and Corona at the time. But this was the third property that we bought intentionally as a landlord. Paid $65,000, ended up hiring some guys, put like 40 grand into it, and we had only $100,000. Funny how that works. That's about how much you could put into a place. Got it rented for $1,800, okay? And got to know the tenants. Matter of fact, when we bought this, I had to move my nephew into the place because we were afraid of it being broken into. The very first night, second night, he was there. He called me at 6 in the morning. Uncle Evan. I went, what? Someone's having relations outside the window right now. And I'm like, it might have been 5 in the morning. I was like, what? Someone's having right now in front of the window. Because the house, the triplex across the street right there, was a bordello, gang house, and drug house. And I knew that. And I said, I still remember my answer. I go, are they good looking? He goes, I can't tell. I said, let me know when they are, and hung up on him. Why'd you call me? Couldn't have done it without him, but man, rough, interesting neighborhood. Anyway, the point is once we started working that area, remember, this is in Victorville. We were working in Anaheim Hills. So I had to leave Anaheim Hills to run up there after rush hour. It was not fun, at this time. This was, like I said, 2011, something like that. This was the first project I did with one of my partners after we raised money in Azira, formed a limited partnership, and we were off and running. We still have that company today. Well, what happened after that is some of these are not exact order, but it really didn't matter for the purpose of this. So what happened now is, let's see. Sorry, wrong button. There we go. Across the street was a 5-unit, okay? Across the street, both on 3rd Street. And I'd see this guy every once in a while because it was a 5-unit apartment complex that was not managed properly. Whoever was a property manager didn't care. And the Rottweiler / pit bulls that were running around loose in that yard trapped me in my 3-unit more than once. I couldn't get to my car. And I'd call the guy. So I got to know the owner. I said, you got to fire those guys or whatever. And the owner was a young kid who was an agent. I've told some of this story before. But the short version of it was that he kept putting it for sale and pulling it off and putting it for sale. And I called him one day and just said, hey, or walked over and saw him and said, hey, next time you ever sell this, because he was pulling it, because I decided to keep it. I said, next time you're ever going to sell this, just call me. I'll give you 140, 150 grand for a 5-unit, right? And plus, I wanted to just get rid of the dogs because they just were, it was a problem. Anyway, it turned out that he calls me, 2 months later, a few weeks later, and he said, and remember, I didn't want to get into a bidding war. And I just told him straight out, because he goes, I'm going to put it on the market tomorrow. And I kind of chewed his rear end out. I told you, his name was Mark. Mark, I told you I can't afford a bidding war. I told you what I do. And he said, give me $108,000, give it to me by the end of next week. It was in 8 days, and it's yours. And I had just offered 140, 150 2-3 weeks before. I was like, no problem, hung up, told Ange, we got to come up with $108,000. We had like $2 grand in our bank account. But I had just refinanced this 3-unit and had met a guy who's now still one of my lenders today. He's retired, but he still lends me money. He's lending me money on a duplex this week. But he came and walked the property with it, and he goes, well, I don't know these 5 units. He goes, but I like you, and I'll invest in you, because we went and walked it. They were getting like $1,500 a month rent from that 5-unit. In a year, we had it at like $3,400, $3,200. And anyway, the point is, by being in the neighborhood, dealing with the dogs, seeing the sign, I met the owner, okay? Because I was there. Now, had I stayed in Corona, working, and just letting someone, would I have seen that? Someone else grabbed it? Okay, right? Then there's an X. I don't know if you see that right here. Right there, there's an X. It's a single-family house behind the alley, because the 3-unit was at an alleyway, and right over here was a single-family house. And my tenant, still remember her name, Yvonne. I bumped into her about a year ago. Her name was Yvonne. She rented this. Her and her daughter rented this one room for me, and she would say, "Hey, Evan, I know everybody in the neighborhood." I'm like, "Yeah." She said, "Hey, I know that they're in trouble." And the house was empty and trash, so it was kind of obvious they were in trouble. But she was like, "No, you got to call them. You got to call them." And I, by this time, had started sending some mailers out and talking to people, but nothing special. So I called them, and we ended up wholesaling that to a friend of ours. Well, actually, to my partner, it was Taz, one of his buddies, that were some flippers. They were contractors that thought they could flip. They tore the house apart and walked away because they just ruined the deal. They blew like 3 deals in a row, lost all of them. Okay? They've got in their head what they need to do. Oh, we got to rebuild this whole thing because they're a contractor. You got to just fix everything. Yeah, you can if you have a budget of $1 billion. If not, you got to make decisions. So I watched them do that for like 3 years at 3 different places. And just a little lesson on budgeting. Sometimes you have this much money. What can you do for this? And that's what you got. Pick your biggest ticket items first, right? You know, I got to deal with HVAC, got to deal with the roof, foundation, a couple things like that first, then deal with how much you got left to do it. It's not just, oh, I got to buy this house and want to put any unlimited amount of money into it. So you just can't, not if you want to make money. So anyway, we made some money on that deal. It wasn't a lot, but it was like a month's salary at the time for what I was making. It was something. Anyway, we're in that neighborhood, and I put up a bandit sign on one of our properties. We buy houses. And this guy calls me and says, I've got these 3 properties. It's probate. And I was like, oh yeah, we do those. Barely knew what probate was, right? And we're like, he's like, yeah, well, I'm the administrator. My family hates me, but I have complete authority. He wants to sell us this 3-unit that was appraised for $75,000. And of course, I bought the 3-unit for $75,000. That was like done. We got it rented for like $2,000, you know, and it needed some work, but different times, I'll tell you. So anyway, I talked to this guy, nice guy, and we went through the process and bought this and by the way, as I was talking to him, my tenant, Yvonne, says, Evan, you got to talk to so-and-so. I know he's trying to sell a 3-unit. Because she wanted, I think I still gave her like a couple $100 for that. Because she had told him about me, but he didn't know that I was the guy on the sign too. So that kind of worked out. So we ended up buying that house, and then we actually, I don't remember if Angela ended up selling. I think my other partner, Taz, sold one of the other properties in Apple Valley he had. And then we ended up, there was another house that comes along with it. But right now there's a 3-unit here. It was a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 3-bedroom, 1-bath with 2 bungalows built in the 30s. Cute little bungalows. And this house I'd heard from, I think Yvonne actually introduced me to the guy who was a haul away guy that I hired to haul away the junk from one of the properties. And his landlord was a guy named John Brown, which was my dad's name. And I had already now sent this guy mailers, and he never responded. And now I knew the guy who was the tenant there, and I said, have your landlord call me, because he said, oh, he's thinking about selling. Because I knew that this guy wasn't paying rent very frequently, because I knew what I paid him, and I could see what he was driving, and he would tell me, and I went, all right. So later, this house, same house, went up on the market. So now follow this. I was told about the house from the tenant. Yvonne kind of pointed out as well. And then I see it on the market after I sent mailers. So I, by now, sent an offer immediately to him and called him. All right, I think my friend got me his phone number. So I called him, and he goes, well, I just got an offer. I go, yeah, that was me. That was my company. The guy didn't stand a chance. You know, so we ended up sitting in his house with our Holloway guy and made the deal and bought the house. And then I got rid of my Holloway guy and moved him somewhere else. And we bought that house and got that up and running. And that rented for like $2,100. I think we paid $100,000 for that place. Rented for $2,100, something like that. So anyone notice something here in the neighborhood? It's just one, then another, then another. Just a couple. By the way, First Street, Second Street, Third Street, A, B, and C. When the towns were laid out in the 1860s, 1870s, they didn't get too original. They didn't know anything above, I don't know if they counted above 11, 10, or A, B, C, D. They got there, and maybe F and G. But I don't know what it is, but you always find the First, Second, Third Street, right? That's usually your first tip-off. Anyway, so our 5-unit next to it was this little two houses on a lot. And I want to say that what I remember is that we ended up wholesaling that house. And what happened is I had given them the owner called me and said, hey, I want to work on this. And I gave him a list of people. And he fired the first group, he fired the second group, he fired the third group. And then he wanted help selling, and that's when I found a buyer for him, and we made, again, a little bit of money, nothing great on that, but again, it was like a month's salary at the time for me, so heck yeah, I'll take it, right? So some of these are wholesale, some of these are keep. So if it's an X, it's a wholesale or a flip. If I just circled it, it was a long-term hold. So then on this corner here, this house, if I remember right, there was like 3 on one street, so I kept getting them confused. But on this one, it turned out that a wholesaler got it and then couldn't sell it. Then I got it, and then we partnered up and found a buyer. And we both did pretty well on that one. All right? And then the one pretty much next to it, I actually got a call from someone. Because remember, by now, we were doing Driving for Dollars. We were doing this mailing campaign over like 6 weeks in the greater area plus this, and we started getting some deals over here, and now I got a deal in Barstow that later on, I got this particular deal in Barstow. We bought a 3-unit out there, and then later I wholesaled something to Al and Marta La Ciega, Rudy's dad. And that guy called me later and said, hey, Evan, actually that was the house in Barstow was one, hey, I got this other house. But the first house was this one next to it, and we ended up doing that. The guy paid like $150,000 for it in like 2007, and then sold it to us for like $35,000. It was just, that's what was going on in the market, okay? So, it was devastating to him, but he was a police officer in LA. He was just selling his property. They were all in his IRAs, and he was just dumping them. I think he got a divorce or something like that. But we bought a couple properties from him. Anyway, now, let's see. This one, I did that. Oh, right here, another 5-unit a 3-unit next to the 3-unit. So we did a probate one, that one I was telling you about, personal representative. Well, my friend Yvonne, who was a tenant member, so if she was late paying rent, I did not care. All right? I was putting on Facebook checks as I kept handing her. People were like, what's that about? I'm like, funny you should ask. So I think I gave her $500 for the first, $250 for the first one, $500, then like $750, then like $1,000 or something. Not a lot, but we bought this 3-unit from a friend of hers who she knew, who was living in the back house, that her ex-husband left her the triplex because there was no one else left. And she was a trustee, and she had people living in the duplex, and they hadn't paid rent in like 3 years. The place was literally falling apart around her. So I said, tell you what, next door I paid $75, how about I give you $75? And she said, sure, let's do that. That's what we did. And we ended up fixing that up, kept it for a short while, and then I did flip that. We did sell it. So I was going to go back to these real quick. So you're going to see the source of those leads was the MLS on the first one on 3rd Street. The other one, we met the owner who was an agent on 3rd Street. A tenant gave us a 3-unit on 4th Street. Bandit sign, personal rep, that the tenant also told us about and told him about, before me, or about the same time. Some of this is 13 years ago, 14 years ago, so I was looking things up, and then so again, some of the order might have been that house instead of that, because it didn't really matter for this. The hall guy, the tenant, MLS, that was from multiple angles. I was talking to that gentleman. The probate, same as number 4, we got 2 out of that. The wholesaler I teamed up with, I think it was Chris Luna actually on that one. And then he was a friend of mine. And then the other landlord, another property you see several on A Street. Then the tenant, when I said same as 3, same tenant, kept telling me these deals. And I was on 5th. And then later on driving for dollars, I got this house right here. So there's 1, 2, 3. There was a one in between. Never could get this one house. It was for sale like 10 times. People were buying and selling it. I don't know what happened, but I never managed to get that. Personal failure. Anyway, so if you look at this, here's one neighborhood that with a few $100s here and there, but mostly just being on the ground, we started controlling a lot of property. And we went to 5 long-term rentals and others. There was like in Barstow and other things. But it went to 20 plus doors. Okay? All right? And so we did about a dozen deals. I wanted to put those 15, but it's 12 it's about 15 deals, but over 4 years. All right? That's one of the advantages if you're working in a neighborhood and you stay in one neighborhood and not drive 90 miles that way or go to another state over here. Or if you're doing this out of state, you do this out of state. Point is get to be known in one neighborhood and keep doing it. Work that farm. It could be a bigger farm than this. This is only a few hundred houses. That's it. I drove through here a few months ago with another member, and I was amazed at the change of the neighborhood. You can see there's been a lot of work with other investors, but it still has a long way to go. I started getting remorse that I was buying it. I sold all of those that we had so I could walk away from my job. That's what I did. And that 5 unit is the thing that allowed me we sold that. My buddy and I, we sold it and gave ourselves bonuses and went and bought adventure bikes, and I started riding adventure bikes that now is my passion for the last 10 years. And it's because that 5 unit. So even though we sold that 5 unit, and I didn't have the money on that, we called some coworkers and said, hey, we need like $45,000 cash. We had the hard money. And we needed it in like 5 days. And they were employees of mine. I was a manager. And one of them came up with it, another one came up with it, and goes, oh, my boyfriend has some. So I got 3 people to give me $15,000. We bought that. We had it for 2 years. And then we sold it. We made about $75,000, $80,000. We split. So we made like 40. They made 40. But we had no money in the deal. Oh, and I got management for a couple of years, and she got a commission. And we sold it for like $210,000. That thing's like a $600,000 property today or something like that. But it was a lot of management intensive, okay? So this is a natural progression that happens to a lot of landlords, all right? And I'm going to talk about another neighborhood we've done this in. Because we've done this more than once. We've done it more than twice. We're still working on it, all right? We started doing this also in Crestline. Richard and Caitlin are really doing that in Crestline as well. You can do this and just keep doing it by actively working it. And I have some more things to go on to it, explain how we got the deals, what to do, and et cetera, and what to say. Again, whether you're flipping or wholesale, it does not matter. Flipping, wholesaling, landlord, it doesn't matter. You find an area that you want to work in and do that. But this is another distressed neighborhood. So I get a high desert as well. A wholesaler contacts me. Hey, Evan, do you buy over here? Yes, I do. Went over and looked at it. It was 2 houses on a lot, and came with a long-term tenant. Tenant had been there 17 years. And they were looking for a wholesaler that would let him stay for at least a year. And I said, I'll let him stay at least 2 years and not raise rent on it, because there was another house on it that was empty. So he's still with us. It's been like 22 years now he's been a tenant there. This is our raising rent. So he has a 1-bedroom house with a garage. He pays $540. Huh? $561, my bad. But the other house, they pay, closer to market, but still way below, because, we didn't raise rent for a while.
Who do you think does the accounting?
2 guesses, but you only need 1. Right? Couldn't do this without her. So what happens, I start driving for dollars. Why? Because wherever I am, that's my market. That's been my attitude, okay? So I start driving for dollars in that neighborhood. I start doing Deal Machine in that neighborhood. I get a phone call. Hey, Evan, yes, I see you called, and et cetera, yeah. Yeah, I tell you, I love that area. I love that area. I just bought a place around the corner, and I can throw a football and hit it. I'd love to really talk to you about making an offer on your duplex. And she really, well, do you know any handyman there? Because our guys are really in Barstow and in wherever. They were far away. and Barstow. Barstow was their area. And they go, it just doesn't fit. It just doesn't fit. And I'm like, okay, well, hey, make an offer, and I could solve that problem for you, you know. And we went back and forth, and I ended up picking up a duplex, a 3-bedroom, 1 bath, 2 of them, you know, so 6 bedrooms, for $95,000 or $90,000. And someone in there was paying $600 a month in one unit. No one was in the other. We rented the other out at $1,000. And now they pay like $11,000. And when the other people, we moved them out of the other one, we raised it, went from like $600 to $1,800. Okay, so the value of that is a $3,600 a month rental that we paid $95,000 for. By the way, I could throw a football and hit this. Well, maybe I can't, but one of you younger guys could throw a football and hit the other place, okay, to be completely honest. But while interesting, so I was on remember when we were all on Zoom during COVID, right? We were all on Zoom. Well, we were on a Zoom meeting, huh? Oh, you try not to? Well, this night we were on Zoom, and I get a phone call, and I mute. Yes, hi, this is Evan. And someone calls that has a duplex that wanted way too much for. He was like trying to sell to like a family member, and whatever he wanted, $1 million. I don't know what it was. I'm like, well, look, the only reason why I can offer this, and I noticed I'm on the phone with him watching whoever was at the time speaking, and I'm looking at it, and I go to Zillow and bring up the value and start looking really quick because I'm trying to get off the phone because I realized it's not anything. And I saw 2 houses on 1 lot. And I went, all right, that price is kind of regular market, but 2 houses, you know, for what rents could be there. Everyone has them under rented for what I could rent it for. So after that night, I told Ange, I said, hey, find out which agent that is. Because I started looking through, and it was, you know, wasn't telling me. He gave me like 5 agents. I said, let me know who the listing agent is. So she tells me the next day when she looked at it, she goes, that's Christy. It's a friend of ours who we've done business with and sold some of our houses before. So I called Christy. Hey, Christy. Actually, she messaged her. And then I called her and said, hey, Christy, it's Evan. I'd like to talk about that. She said, Evan, if you want that house or this, I will talk to the owner about it, but and I'll try to sell her on you. Okay? And I offered a certain price, whatever, under to appraised value. I wrote up something kind of, tried to get creative, blew up in my face. I still got the house, but I still paid like 20 grand more. But it was 2 houses on 1 lot, and that's what I wanted. It just didn't look like it was the same lot. But we did buy that because I got a different phone call from Driving for Dollars, and I answered and started looking, and I was like, all right, I need to pay attention more in this neighborhood a little bit, all right? I was busy elsewhere. Well, so a little while later, I get another, I'm looking around now, and it pops up. It's a single-family residence for sale for like $130. And I knew I could rent it for $1,800. And again, or I could flip it for $200 and something. And I'm like, yeah, well, if I'm going to rent that and make $400 a month, no, it wasn't too exciting for me, just for the amount of work. So the next day, I go out, I'm going to go drive the neighborhood because I want to see what's going on, how to do something. And what do you know? There were 2 more next to it. 2 on one side, 1 on the other, all with the same agent. Well, I didn't see those. And I had driven for dollars on some of these I'd already sent mailers to and never got a response. So several of them were on a radar. And one of them had 35 dogs living inside the house. Yeah, you want to taste the taste? Yep. So not as bad as the house Miguel and I were in. We're like 5 days later, we were still feeling sick. Remember that one?
Yeah, I do remember.
Yeah. I don't think he wants to drive down that street again, ever on that one. But anyway, so once I saw there were 3 houses with 1 agent, I called, and they were all different sellers. They were all lifelong friends that decided to sell at the same time. And they were all elderly. So we made offers, got 2 of them right away, and the 3rd one, we dropped the price because they had a legal addition on. So the point with that is that, you know, we're driving down and seeing 3 out. I went, well, if I rent 3 out and even made $400 each, that's $1,200 from just across the street. Concentration of effort. This is 1 street over from the other streets. Oh, heck yeah. So we owned all 3 of those and two side by side across the street. Then, now I'm really paying attention. Something on MLS pops up. There's a little duplex, beat-up duplex. Some of you have been in the duplex. And we ended up, picking that up for like $75,000, put like 80 into it, and rented it for $2,500 a month, although I got one good tenant and one tenant from down there. He's gone. We got him out. The sheriff escorted him out. Too nice. They were way too nice. Anyway, but we picked that up, and that's literally around the corner. That is like 2-minute walking distance from the others. And the person that sold that owned some other houses right there, and she broke that property off, had it rezoned, gave us access, and sold it. So now I know this other owner, I now know the owner next door, and 2 houses down from that place. So then, remember, we're still just doing our job. We're flipping, we're having some wholesale deals. We're living a life. I'm riding my motorcycles. I'll go out there. I park my my car at one of those places if there's empty, and I'd take off riding. I'm in the area. There's good and bad to that. For example, one of them, I pull up in my car, jump out, get halfway up the walkway, and open the door and go, "We don't want to sell."
I know you.
Okay. But that was the person not paying rent. That was a person, someone else paying all the bills. That was a person that, you know what I mean? It was the wrong person. But I already sent mailers. No one responded. So I thought it was worth a shot. Ran away with my tail between the legs for that moment. Said, "I'll be back." That was like 2 years ago. Anyway, so while we're doing this, this agent on the third deal up there, Christy, she had told me right after we closed, "Hey, Evan, there's this probate thing going over here. They need an attorney. It's his house and blah, blah, blah." And I said, "Great. Tell me about it." She did. And then 6 months later, still nothing had changed on that. And I said, "Please get me in the room with the owner." And they did. And we bought the rights. Then this is some, the story. I bought the rights to that person, opened up probate as the legal heir. Finish that, and actually we're in escrow to sell that house now. Maybe another week or 2, we should be done on that. That was a 3-bedroom, 1-bath that I was keeping. After I relooked at everything, I'm going to sell that one. But that was a referral off of an agent that we're now working in that neighborhood, and other people were telling me, "You got to buy that house." But we did that. And then Mrs. K. Who knows the TV series Bewitched? Mrs. Kravitz, right? I call her Mrs. Kravitz. She will tell you she is she goes on the first show. She's the first person to tell you that. Well, right before we did Fire Fast this year, she says, I'm dealing with this. I get calls, tells me everything that's going on in the neighborhood. I love her for this. She's great. She's always been straightforward with me, and I'm always straight with her. I can't always tell her everything at that exact moment. I got to wait a little bit because she might let the rest of the neighborhood know. So there's a little bit of holdback. So, but anyway, so Mrs. Kravitz has been telling me for a year about what's going on with half these houses and who the people aren't paying rent, et cetera. And there's this flip we're doing right now. We're doing this flip. And she had been telling me about it, but I was like, yeah, well, I sent mailers. I already done that. And then right before Fire Fast this year, we did a 6-week Fire Fast thing. It was going to start like January 4th. And it's like December 28th or whatever. And I'm like, or 15th. It was like something told me I shouldn't wait. So I called and said, "Hey, Dave, you don't know me. I own the house next door. I love that neighborhood. If you ever think about selling your mom's house, please call me first." And then he proceeded to tell me why. "Yeah, mom's good. We're not going to sell. Maybe a couple of years down the road." Okay. Had a great conversation. "Yeah, I heard you bought Maggie's house." "Yeah." He goes like, "That was like my great aunt or whatever it was." "Oh, okay." Then Richard and Kayla and I, a bunch of us on a 4x4 trip, a couple days later, in the campsite, at a cabin, got just enough signal, got a phone call. I'm like, "Who is it?" And it's the wife of David. She's like, "We changed our mind. We want to sell in the next 60 days. It was like 4 days later. I'm standing like on one leg, away from the fire, and I remember trying to make sure I got a good signal. I'm like, "Sure, but I'm out of town. Can we meet on Tuesday?" And They're like, yeah, absolutely. Okay, bye. Okay, so I picked up the phone, all right, because something was telling me, again, that, you know what, I didn't want to wait for the start of fire. You know what, I need to get going. Sometimes you can't wait. And they had already rejected all my postcards. So now she tells me that. So anyway, we did close on the house. We did buy it. We closed on February 1st. I did move the people out that were not paying rent to my other one-bedroom apartment that I just evicted the other guy because they need a place to go, and I want to start my flip, and I have other reasons to do that. So we're now starting our flip, and that's going to be a pretty good flip. And we should make about $40,000 to $50,000 on that flip. So it's going to be considering that I'm basically putting maybe $10,000 out of my own money because someone in this room lent us the purchase price and lent us the rehab. I think we still have to come out of pocket like 10 grand or 15. But when we're done, we should make about 40, 45. And Angela, if she lists it, she might not want to because it's farther away. She's going to, make a pretty good little commission on that. All right? And I tell you that is because while I'm talking to this guy David at lunch, we're at a luncheon discussing everything, I offered him like $105,000 for the house. And he said, I got another offer for like $150,000. And he goes, but after talking to you and you're telling me how many people will blow smoke up our butts and we'll try to do this and come back, and I listened for a couple of things, I realized he was going to do that. And some other guy said he'd give me $110,000. And I don't know if he was making it up, but I was like, yeah, I can do $110,000, sure, just needed to ask my alter ego real quick. And it worked out. So we did it, signed, we're good. While I'm talking to him, I'm saying, yeah, I just love that neighborhood. I'm really trying to bring it back. There's some really cool aspects to it. It was extremely beautiful 30 years ago, really interesting before the county pulled a lot of money from it. The parks that were there, et cetera, it's delving into the neighborhood itself. But one of the things is I said, yeah, there's, I'm dealing with these people. And matter of fact, this guy David was saying that his family that was living in the house never helped his mom, never did this, and he had some not choice words for him. So he just didn't want to deal with it. That's why he sold it, because he didn't want to deal with family. So while I'm talking about that, and I said, yeah, I've just been trying to buy. And he goes, well, I've heard about you because we have a mutual friend, Mrs. Kravitz. So actually, as I'm driving over to look at the house to talk to him on that Tuesday, he calls me and says, my mom died this morning. I am so sorry, Dave. And I said, I could reschedule. He goes, no, you're already up here. Come on over. Okay. So within hours of someone passing away, walking into the house with people upset, and I'm this, that was interesting. I was like, we can cancel, buddy. It's okay. He's like, no, you're already up here. So I didn't want the people inside to know who I was, so I literally took my hat off, parked my Jeep around the corner, wore a different shirt, walked in. They did not even recognize me. Because be honest with you, when you do this, get rid of the collared shirt, throw a jacket, hunch over, guess what? No one is like. Matter of fact, I was in the backyard with this guy. No, seriously. I walked in this house and just said, and I tried to disguise my voice and said, where's David? He's out back. So I walked around out back, and then I realized that the person out back next door, I bought a house from his girlfriend. It was actually the house that was the probate deal. What happened to our thing? The probate deal. He was there when I bought the rights from that thing. He didn't even recognize me. He walked right up to the other guy, talked to him, walked away, and I went, it's working. This guy has worked. Anyway, sometimes you got to park your car around the corner, take off the hat, hunch over, do that. So, but anyway, as I'm talking to David at lunch, and I tell him about this duplex and some of the things we're trying to buy, he goes, oh, that's my cousin's. Really? Yeah, funny. I've been sending them mailers for years. And he goes, yeah, that whole thing. You want my cousin's phone number? Sure, because I could find nothing because they were elderly. I had noticed, because I said, I noticed that there were two women that owned it, and one of them had deeded it over after like 40 years of inactivity. Someone had deeded it over to the other. One sister just said, we don't want it anymore because they're in their 80s. So I saw that and went, oh, someone's buying it. Something's going on. And then I realized it actually got worse. This place looks like a junkyard, this duplex. And so And I know there's stuff going on because the guy that's living there keeps beating up his girlfriend, which is the granddaughter. I mean, viciously arrested, and she doesn't press charges. Actually, I got the call today from Mrs. K that he was literally chasing her down the street today. And bam, 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 literally on it. And it's like, it's bad. So so sometimes you just have no words. So anyway, so the guy's a real upstanding citizen, you can tell. And so he gives me his cousin's phone number. So I call. I get her. I say, hi, you don't know me. I just bought David's house. My name's Evan. Oh, yes, okay, all right, you bought David's house. Okay, my cousin, yeah, I heard he sold it, yes. I said, listen, I love that neighborhood. I've been buying some of the houses there. I have some rentals in the area. I just absolutely love it, and I just want to know if you guys ever think about selling it. I would love to have an opportunity to buy it. She's like, yeah, well, we've been talking to mom, et cetera, and fine. Let me talk to mom. Okay, bye, click. Remember, I've been sending like 2 or 3 years to this, getting nowhere. And you don't send it to the house, you send it to a post office box in that town, like in Crestline. Some areas you do that. So half of them were coming back. They just come back. You couldn't, it's like, what, they stopped they canceled the post office box? Yeah, that's what they did. Because mom moved across town to her daughter's, living with this daughter I found. And I'm getting nowhere with the daughter after weeks. I keep calling during Fire Fast either. I'm calling, getting nowhere. Enter Mrs. Kravitz. She's like, hey, did you buy that duplex yet? I was like, no, I'm trying. And she's talking, and she says, well, my neighbor, so-and-so, is good friends with the other daughter. It's like, oh, okay. I keep hearing this, and she's telling me she moved out. She couldn't take her watching her daughter get abused by the boyfriend, and no one was doing anything about it. They wouldn't arrest him, or they'd arrest him and they'd release him, and just a problem. So she moved out too. So now 2 women and their elderly mom are living somewhere else, and left a granddaughter who's getting beaten up by this guy. This is what we deal with sometimes. Live in a house with no electricity, no water, no power, okay? Well, no gas. They might have one utility, I forget. And her kids were now taken away. So her income went from $2,400 a month, mom's telling me this, to $500 a month. So now they really are hurt. They weren't helping before because mom and grandma were taking care of everything, at least up till recently. So what's happening is I come along and I'm talking to, keep trying to talk to this one daughter who's a nurse, works night shift and stuff like that. I can't get through to her again after a conversation. So I call Mrs. Kravitz and say, can you have your friend tell the other to give me a call? So now I've mailed to it for years. I've now been calling and introduced myself another way. I don't know where this house in Apple Valley is. Where they're living, so I can't knock on the door. And the one time I did I went up to knock on the door, they said they don't want to sell. So a week later, I get a call. Hi, my name is so-and-so. I'm the daughter of so-and-so. And I'm like, oh, yes, I was hoping you would call. I love that neighborhood. I've been buying up this house. Oh, yeah, you bought my Aunt Maggie's house. Oh, okay, great. Yeah, blah, blah. And just saying how much I love the neighborhood, et cetera, what's going on. Well, we do want to sell, just trying to get mom on board. We go a few times. So they want $250,000 for this place. And I'm like, it's worth that, maybe a little more, like $275 when it's fixed, but it needs $100,000 worth of work. Took a few phone calls and a meeting with mom, who is living, mostly bedridden. We're in escrow to buy that right now at $150,000, okay, which was my original offer. But we're going to pay an extra $5,000 in liens, okay? So this is something that we've done. We went from 1 to 10 properties, 2 to 15 doors, 10 deals over about 4 years in an area, doing kind of what we did in that area. It's just kind of natural and just kind of working. And this is while we're working other areas, doing line deals, flips, wholesales, managing rentals. Okay, these are things you can do, especially if you're already in an area, okay? So I was talking to a buddy of mine who's how many of you realize this, that once you're buying an area of your landlord and you've seen this or it's happened to you? Who's had this happen to them? Okay, Richard and I. How many own rental properties now? Okay, You're missing out on an opportunity, I'm telling you.
What was your question?
No, just that how many have seen that happen naturally, or even if you in an area where one just keeps taking over, doing more and more. In Old Town Victorville, in this neighborhood, there was one guy that owned 26 properties. I kept trying to meet him. He once sent me a very nasty letter, which wasn't nasty, but a very direct letter on, stop sending him stuff. And it turned out that this one of these deals we just bought, the probate house actually, the one we got, two of the people we know this guy, and I keep going, please give me his phone number. Please, but most of his properties are in this Old Town area, which I'm not sure I want. I do, but I don't. Anyway, a lot of maintenance in that area was management intensive. But anyway, so when you start working in the area, you start realizing people that know people, et cetera, and you'll notice that, especially in the older neighborhoods, all right, or smaller communities, and we're going to go into that a little bit. So a couple things about this is that you can actually change the dynamics of a neighborhood. Small neighborhood, you can't. That house, the one I just talked about, this one here, there's only 176 houses in the town, okay? So we have 10 properties, 15 doors, 176, there's, I don't know, a little bit. But we took the rents, that average rents that were $800 for a house and put them to $1,800. They were $1,100 or $1,000 to $1,800 over 4 years. So we're those people, and it's just a natural progression. But we're also putting 50 grand into a house versus the way it was and what they were renting before. Putting 50 into this one, 75 into this one. So they're not living in the same house. It's like, oh, we fix things. Oh, that's yeah. So even then, we have a reputation. We'll fix things. But you can really change the dynamics of a neighborhood. And I want to point out a couple of things. Just something you could see why someone else would do this. So rents, you can actually have an effect on rents in a small area if you do this, or even prices. Now, I'm not saying they do this, but some of these big iBuyers that come in and, that buy up 20 homes in a neighborhood quickly, and then they start renting them out, and they buy, say, houses for $400,000. Let's just use that for a moment. They have 20 houses, and then they overpay on one house at $500,000. They just raise the value of what they own by $2 million. Not very, even if they do that deliberately, which some of them have been accused of. Not just something to keep an eye out when you see, why is that one house so much higher? And sometimes it might be strategic someone's doing. By the way, in our neighborhood, any of you that flip, we're flipping this one house now that we're saying that we just can't got the appraisal today, came in at value, and it's $20,000 higher than we're asking, because I was like, thank God, because this slightly smaller house that we're flipping now, same neighborhood, one street over, 100 square feet smaller, oh, I can now ask $15,000 more just because this one goes, okay? So there's other advantages that you can kind of control or help become your own comps, okay? We've done that Crestline, not as direct, but you can do that. And I'll say the attitude of the neighbor too. There are people that love you and there are people that hate you. They just do. It just kind of goes with the territory, okay? Yeah, so just understand that, and this is why, one of the reasons why, by working in a neighborhood, by being hands-on, by being out there, there's a lot of advantages versus just being hands-off and let someone else collect rent, or not being over there, drive by, or some of you that are like do the management. Well, I'm the manager. I've done that too, but for years now, I'm the one buying because I want all the deals. We've done this in like 4 or 5 neighborhoods. Not as many as some of them, but we've done that where we have 4 or 5, 6 homes, 7 homes in an area that once we get going. Okay, it's very natural. So a buddy of mine I was talking to him the other day, and he goes, "Oh, and let me tell you how I went from 1 to 40 houses in Long Beach." And I was like, okay. And so we started talking. And Colton, some of you guys know him. He doesn't own any of those 40 houses because of a couple of marriages, but that's another story. But he's like, be careful who you marry. Anyway, this is what he did on every house. Every worker at his properties gets a business card. He's also a hands-on guy. He wields a hammer. Okay? He does that a lot. He hires crews. He's also a GC. So he's in that area. He will sometimes get an RV and stay in the area so he doesn't have to drive back. Or he'll sleep on the place. Matter of fact, He has an RV. We sold him several houses last year, and Angela sold him a house in like Ukaipa, across the street from Al and Marta's, some of their properties. So they got to know each other. And he was living in an RV on the property for a while, trailer, just so he didn't have to drive, so he could work more. So he gets to know everybody, all right? And but he'll stay nearby. He'll shop and eat there. He people watches. He goes, Evan, I've gotten pretty good. I can usually tell who the manager or the owner is versus some renter walking by, just by how they're dealing with the house or how they're walking in, etc. I was like, really, I'd like to know more about that. But he meets the neighbors to make sure they know that he owns the house. This is what he's doing. This is how. Please call me if there's anything. And he has many of them that come to him and say, you know what? I see what you're doing. You know, I'm just tired, because he's in an area for a while, and they'll start, hey, would you want to buy my place? Because it's not some faceless entity somewhere sending postcards or calling, bugging you all the time. It's a guy you know bugging you all the time. All right? It's a guy you see across the street working. Okay? There's a lot of advantages to this. It's not the only way. It's just one of the advantages to that. Even if you just pick an area. This is where agents, for those of you agents, will literally go in an area and will mass market. And they'll do ice cream days at the park, and they'll say, come on over and do a free evaluation to get to know, so you get to know that person the way you like them. Angela got a referral today from a friend that was an agent when she started, and they recently moved. And these people, she sold them a home 15 years ago, and they remembered her so much that they wanted their friend Lisa. Lisa's retired in Colorado now and says, no, I'm sorry, call Angela. Angela will take good care of you. All right? So you understand? You get good into a neighborhood or you do something, people will remember. So understand this is not just about houses, it's about relationships. So being at the property frequently, following up a lot. Matter of fact, my friend, he owns 6 units next to each other. He bought a house, added an ADU, converted the garage to an ADU, added some square footage to the house, made a junior ADU. The whole time talking to the neighbor next door, hey man, I really love your house. If you ever think about selling, please. And he just stayed on for like 3 years. Finally got the house about a year and a half ago, and then he converted all that. Now he has 6 units side by side that originally were 2 single-family residents in Colton with incredible cash flow. I've been to the house, et cetera, and he's just getting started in that because he's only owned over there in a few years. Okay? But he's done this, and he ended up with over 40 doors in Long Beach by just staying on this, and just being that guy that people could like and trust. Okay? So understand, it's not just about houses. Understand by developing an area. Yes, in the beginning, a lot of us will run anywhere we see a lead or a deal. But while you might be doing that, pick an area. Could be where you're at, could be where your mom lives, could be where you live, could be where you rent. It does not matter. It matters that if you have something in the area or a value, you start taking action. And things change sometimes. Postcards, lately it's been phone calls. Picking up the phone. Hi, I really like that neighborhood. We're going to talk more about that. So if you're just getting started, where do you live? You can do this. So how many do not own a property, a rental property at all? Okay? I do. Should have raised my. Okay. How many people don't own how many people just rent their house? They don't even. Okay. All right. So here's the thing. Anywhere you're at, you can do this. All right? So you can go into a neighborhood and go to a garage sale. You can go and look at a car, see family, go antiquing, okay? Go see a house for sale. Go see a friend, right? You can literally do that and do the same thing. It doesn't matter if you don't own right there. A lot of you go, well, yeah, it's fine, easy for you, Evan. You already own a property there, so it gives you some, okay? But you could do this even if you rent in a neighborhood and you just like the neighborhood. And you can do this. Hi, Rachel. Wonder where I got that. You don't know me. Earlier today, I was at a garage sale by your property at 123 Main Street, or on your street, where you have that cute little house on such and such street. Now, if you got cut off right now, they're going to be like, well, what was that call? What's going on? Did someone fall? Someone get bit? They want to know why you call. versus, hi, do you own the house at such and such street? Okay? I'm just assuming that. All right? Hi, Rachel, you don't know me. Earlier day, last weekend, it does not matter. Recently, okay, I was at a garage sale by a property on 123 Main Street. You want to be in the same area. I love that neighborhood, but I've been wanting to buy there forever. Okay? Would you ever consider selling to me? That's different than some agent just want to list your house. Understand. Okay? Understand. Literally is what I've said, except I own the house next door, or I own property in the neighborhood. Okay? Sometimes we don't own property in the area. I will work in something like Elsinore. My sisters have been living in Lake Elsinore for 30 years. We used to go camping out there. My brother walked out to the middle of the lake. Oh, so me too. You get the idea? Okay? So I love that neighborhood. I wanted to buy there forever. Would you ever consider selling to me? It's not just I want to buy your house. It's very a lot colder. Would you ever consider selling to me? Well, I'm thinking about it. Maybe one day. Okay, great. Say, well, let me tell you. I work with a lot of investors, and I know a lot of handymen. I don't know if you have any good handymen in the area, but if you ever do, please call me. I'd probably refer you to somebody. And I'm also in that area a lot. I noticed you live in Vegas, and your property's right here. If you ever need me to drive by, just to see if, maybe tenant hasn't paid rent, need me to drive by, I'll be glad to look at it for you. Just take a picture and send it to you. I've done that. I'm doing it right now in one of the neighborhoods. I've talked to several of them. Several of the other owners that live farther away. And they're like, no, I wouldn't sell. I don't want to sell that. I go, well, I wouldn't sell it either if I were you. But hey, I got to ask. Right? And so, it was like, yeah, good handyman. I might need that. And I actually had one of the guys call me back a couple weeks ago and just asking hey, when are you going to go up next? I said, well, it's going to be a few days. He goes, well, I got to go up tomorrow. I have a question, etc. Matter of fact, I called I called that same guy a few weeks before, and I said, hey, one of your windows is broken. He's like, what? I just put it in. It's the exact same unit next door. And he just put windows in here, and they didn't have a broken window. I called him about the wrong house. But we had a good laugh. So, yeah, it just happened. And so even if you screw up, it's okay.